Hello, my name is Carol Windrum. I'm part of the Nebraska Conference staff. I'm Director of Risk-Taking Mission and Justice Ministries. I'm so glad that you and your team are planning a day of service. It's a day in which you can grow spiritually. You can see the face of God in those whom you serve. So if you've done a day of service before, you know that there's a lot of details and a lot of planning before you even get to the site. So you've done your promotional, you've gotten the word out, when is it, where are we meeting, what time, what to wear. Maybe you've arranged transportation to the site, and maybe you've done a little extra praying if it's an outdoor kind of service project that you're going to get sunshine that day. This is also an opportunity for you to go deeper, for your team to really see the Spirit of Christ in what you're doing. What will this experience mean in your walk with Christ? Micah 6:8 might be a short Bible passage that you and your team can use as a prayer focus before, during, and after your day of service. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? I recommend that you gather your team, perhaps at the church, before you go to the site, so that you can have quiet time for group prayer. And you might use this passage from Micah to center yourselves before you go to the mission site. Perhaps someone will read that passage slowly a few times to help you all be quiet and be intentional about being in God's presence. How can your team walk humbly with God during this day of service? It's going to be helpful for you all to remind yourselves that you will see the face of Christ in those with whom you serve. Remember the passage from the 25th chapter of Matthew, where Jesus said to his followers, when you gave drink to the thirsty, you gave food to the hungry, you did it to me. So when your team is at that mission site, it's just taking the time to be aware that you are humbly walking with God as you recognize the face of Jesus in those with whom you serve. Each person has a story, just like you have your story. Each person has gifts, just like you have gifts. So slowing down during the tasks and being aware that you are encountering Christ is a way that you can walk humbly with God this day. You might want to give each person on your team just a short little piece of yarn. Invite them to put it on their wrist, and that little bracelet can be a visual reminder to them throughout the day. So when they see that in the midst of all of their tasks, they can slow down, they can look around, and they can be aware of that humble walk with God. You might figure out other ways in which your team throughout the day can stop and be aware of Jesus surrounding them. So we're also called to love kindness. Again, in your gathering, before you go to the site, talk about ways in which your team can show loving kindness during this day. For those of you who have been on service projects before, or you've participated in Volunteers in Mission, you know that you can make all the plans in the world, but when you get to the mission site, probably things aren't going to go exactly like you planned. Perhaps the one who's bringing all the cans of paint is late. Maybe it's an outdoor project and there's rain clouds forming all around you. Things happen. So a way in which you can be intentional about loving kindness is to talk as a team. How are we going to deal with those things? as they arise throughout the day. Loving kindness maybe could be somebody else wants to do the project this way and you think it ought to be done that way. So maybe loving kindness might be you saying, you know what, I'm open to change. I can do it a different way. If you haven't been on a day of service experience before, you might have a project they assign you that you really aren't comfortable doing. You've never drywalled before. You don't know what's next, and you feel awkward. You feel uncomfortable. So loving kindness can be being kind to yourself. The job doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to go at a fast clip. So loving kindness can be saying, you know, God, I know you're using me today, and I'm going to be kind and patient with myself along the way. For those of you who go thinking, this is our project today, we're putting a roof on today, and that's it. I just want to caution you just a bit, because a day of service is more about relationships than it is about getting the task done. The work is important, but kindness in this situation is more important than efficiency. So give yourself a chance to be kind to others and be kind to yourself. So now we're going to the do justice part of that passage from Micah. There are mission sites that we all hope in 5 or 10 years won't be in existence anymore. They won't be needed. Wouldn't it be wonderful if a food pantry in your community wasn't needed anymore? Or at least the number of people needing to go there was reduced significantly. In that passage from the prophet Micah, Micah could have said, what does the Lord require of you but to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? That seems to cover the bases. But not so. The doing justice part of our walk is just as important. In your adult life, have you been in a situation again and again when you were dependent on others for shelter, for food, for transportation? All of us have times in our lives when we are more reliant on others, and that's not a bad thing. None of us are in this to go it alone. But if we are continually in situations where we have little power over our own lives, that can become demeaning, and it devalues our sense of worth. You know the good feelings that you have when you are the giver. We all hope for a day when that's going to be the case for everyone. A sense of power to create their own destinies. And that's where justice is so critical. There's 3 pieces of paper that I hope that you will take the opportunity to download that can help you and your team go a little deeper on that justice part. The first one is simply a sample letter that you might want to adapt and send to the mission site a couple weeks before you go. You don't want to show up there that day and surprise them with this. This is a sample letter, and basically it says, thank you for your ministry in our community. Thank you for letting us be a part of it. And then it's asking them to take a few moments at the end of the day to help your team go deeper, to understand some of the systemic causes that is bringing those people to this place of direct service. So that's for you. Again, it's just a sample, but I hope you'll download it and find it of use. All of your teams are going to be working on different things throughout the year. This second sheet that I hope that you will download and share with others is a list of some very credible helpful websites, organizations, many of them Christian-based, that can help us, again, go deeper and advocate on behalf of the people that we're serving and with the people we're serving. So, for instance, if you're working with children, there are websites here that can help you learn more about issues that affect children. Hunger, caring for God's creation, and some of you might be working with Habitat for Humanity. If you go to their website, you'll see that they have an advocacy piece, because Habitat for Humanity also realizes that public policy impacts the very families that they're trying to help with affordable housing. So that's for you as a resource as well. The last piece of paper is a sample letter. All I did was get it from the Habitat website. It's a sample letter, and again, just to give you an idea. So let's just say your team is involved with Habitat. So after that day, you might want to do a little more studying on affordable housing in your community, in the state, in the nation. And after you've studied, you might want to invite your congregation after worship on a Sunday morning to possibly write their own letters. We're not talking about partisan politics here at all. It doesn't make any difference what political party you are. It's a way in which we Christians can say, we're concerned about our neighbors who can't afford housing, and we believe that we'll use our citizenship to voice these concerns and work on behalf and with them. So, you're going to have a great day of service, and you're going to please God by loving kindness, by walking humbly with God, and by doing justice, seeking long-term solutions to poverty and need that you face today.